I used to believe exhaustion was temporary, that if I just pushed a little harder, things would eventually even out. I was wrong. My name is Ethan Carter, and for years I convinced myself
Hi
that
guys,
love
sorry to
meant
interrupt,
endurance,
but I really
that
need your
marriage was
support
about
to continue
absorbing
this channel.
pressure
So
silently,
please
like a
subscribe and
foundation
like my
buried
videos.
underground.
Thank you.
Never seen, never thinked, just expected to hold. It started more than a decade ago when Lauren, my wife, sat across from me at our kitchen table with a folded brochure and hopeful eyes. She wanted to go back to school, said it was her chance to build a future, to feel proud of herself again. She begged me to help her get there, so I did. I took a second full-time job. I worked mornings, nights, weekends. I came home smelling like stale coffee and airport carpet. I told myself it was temporary, just until she graduates. She did graduate, and then, without warning, she decided she didn't want to work after all. She said staying home felt more natural. She said careers could wait. I didn't argue. Our first child was still small, and I wanted to believe her happiness mattered. A year later, our second child was born, and that's when the math stopped working. Bills grew teeth, sleep disappeared, fear settled in my chest. Like a low-grade infection. I asked Lauren if she could help, even part-time. She laughed and told me she already worked harder than I ever could. So I swallowed my doubt and did the unthinkable. I went back to school. I worked 2 jobs and completed a master's degree at night. Papers written at 2 a.m., exams taken on 4 hours of sleep. I told myself this was the final push, that once I climbed higher, everything would calm down. It didn't. 3 years later, I was the sole provider for a family of 4. 50-hour weeks, constant travel. And when I came home, I didn't rest. I shifted roles. Laundry, cooking, school pickups, doctor appointments. 75% of the household lived on my shoulders. Lauren? She told me to man up. Whenever I said I was tired, she said she was more tired. Whenever I said I was stressed, she reminded me how lucky I was to escape the house for work. If my feet hurt from 30,000 steps on a business trip, she said that was nothing compared to standing in the kitchen with a toddler clinging to her leg. For years, I was told I've ruined her life, her opportunities, her happiness. What hurt the most was knowing she'd chosen this life and now blamed me for it. Her mother, Margaret, lived with us. She was gentle, quiet, observant. One afternoon, she pulled me aside and said something that shook me. I see how lonely you've become. She was right. I hugged my kids longer than my wife. I talked to the dogs more than I talked to her. I lived in a constant state of emotional triage, one step away from a promotion, one step away from drowning my thoughts in a glass of whiskey. Then I did something reckless. I took 2 weeks off work without telling Lauren. She found out when her spa appointment bounced. That was the day she screamed, not because I was exhausted, but because the money stopped. That was when I realized I wasn't her partner. I was her infrastructure. When I finally confronted her, calm, direct, unyielding, she didn't listen. She packed a bag and left for her sister's house, playing the victim. The next day, she tried to take the kids with her. Even her own family stopped her. After a week, she returned as if nothing had happened, walked into my home office during a live conference call and stared at me with pure resentment. When I couldn't immediately respond, she exploded. Margaret pulled her away. The nanny took the kids to the other side of the house. That night, after the kids were asleep, Lauren and I talked, argued, cried, drank, fell into bed out of exhaustion, not love. The next morning shattered me. She spent hours telling me how hard her week away had been, how lucky I was, how easy my life was, how everyone else had it better than her. Something inside me broke. I tried again to reconcile, to communicate, to explain how close I was to collapse. She screamed back, "You're supposed to make me happy." That was the moment I realized. I didn't recognize the woman sleeping beside me. I started sleeping on the couch, in my office, sometimes in my kids' beds after they fell asleep. Nothing changed. She woke up at 10, scrolled her phone, talked to mom groups while her mother and the nanny handled the kids. Marriage counseling was the final confirmation. She cried, blamed me, gaslit in front of a licensed therapist. When asked when she last felt truly happy, she said, "About 12 years ago, back when she was childless, living with her ex, clubbing every weekend." I knew then. She wasn't unhappy with me. She was unhappy with adulthood. Father's Day sealed everything. At a family barbecue, while I talked quietly who didn't have dads at a school event, Lauren laughed loudly and said, "It's not like you do anything anyway. I could have gone instead." The room froze. Margaret broke the silence. "Then maybe one of you should divorce the other." Lauren mocked me, pointed, as if another woman would want him. I stood up without a word, grabbed my keys, and left, ignoring my kids crying for me to stay. The next morning, I looked at her sleeping and mourned a marriage that had died years ago. I texted my lawyer. When she was served, she screamed, claimed I turned her family against her, then suddenly became the most attentive wife and mother imaginable. Too late. I'm pursuing full custody. I'll cover every expense: tuition, insurance, medical care. I'll even help her family through cancer treatments, because compassion doesn't disappear just because love does. I don't want war. I want peace. And for the first time in years, I'm choosing myself.